Christian left me alone on Wailing Mountain for a month. When he came to pick me up, he was still seething with anger. You should be grateful that Carolina's leg is fine. Otherwise you would have to pay for it with your life. The wedding is postponed for a year. When we get back, you will explain it to your parents yourself. He thought I would be so aggrieved that I would cry and make a fuss, insisting on not agreeing to the wedding postponement. But I just lowered my head obediently. All right, I'll do as you say. Christian stayed stunned for a long time. If you think the postponement is too long, you can also. No need. I smiled and refused. Christian, don't know. I made a deal with the Undead of the mountains. In 5 days, I will marry another man in her place. Chapter 1. When the rescue team found me, I was already completely emaciated. My eye sockets were sunken, my cheeks were gaunt, and my face was as pale as a corpse. The team leader looked at the photo for a long time before using the walkie-talkie to notify Christian. Sir, Miss Wren has been found. Before long, Christian and Carolina arrived. Seeing Selena's paper-white face and excessively thin body, Christian was first taken aback, then increasingly angry. Why can't you just stay put? Do you have any idea that the rescue team hasn't slept for days looking for you? You just can't shake off that bad habit of causing trouble for others. Can you? Wailing Mountain is shrouded in mist year-round, with wild beasts lurking. At first Selena really didn't dare to take a step forward. She could only stay in place, eating the food in her backpack, anxiously waiting for Christian to come and find her, to rescue her from this sea of suffering. One day, when she woke up, she was horrified to find 2 creatures resembling wild wolves not far away, licking her remaining backpack. The eyes glimmered with a green light, as if it would swallow her whole with the next bite. Selena was so scared that she didn't dare to breathe deeply, her nails digging into her palm, almost drawing blood. Fortunately, in the end, the wolf left. Sated, after losing all her food, she was forced to venture deeper into the mountains. Faced with Christian's anger, Selena only lowered her head, offering no explanation. In the past, Christian always complained that she talked too much and never let go of a point. Later, it gradually became that no matter what Selena explained, his first reaction was always to refuse to believe. Since that's the case, what else does she have to fight for? Selena thought listlessly. A young guy in the rescue team seemed unable to take it anymore and muttered in her defense. Wailing Mountain is notoriously dangerous, with wild beasts often roaming about. How could a girl possibly stay in the same place for a month? Do you know Selena from before? Carolina's unexpected question left the young guy baffled. No, I don't know her. Carolina giggled behind her hand. Hearing you speak so highly of Selena, I thought you two were old acquaintances. As she spoke, she meaningfully glanced at Selena, her laughter becoming even more melodious. Selena is still so charming that even strangers she meets for the first time rush to defend her. No sooner had the words left her mouth than Christian's face darkened, but not towards the young man. Instead, he turned to Selena. What's this? In such a short time, a man is already standing up for you? You really have a way with people. The rescue team leader quickly pulled the team back to avoid anyone in the group misunderstanding the situation and making things worse. For a moment, the forest was eerily quiet. It was Carolina who first broke the silence, crouching down to ask, Selena, are you okay? As she spoke, she looked up at Christian. That day, it wasn't Selena's intention. She was just spoiled since childhood and had a bias against me, which is why she acted out. Christian, you shouldn't blame her anymore. Look, I only have a little injury on my leg and it has hurt for so long. Selena, a young girl, must be terrified staying at Wailing Mountain. Let's hurry and take her back. When it comes to that day, Christian's tone was simply icy cold. You should be grateful that Carolina's leg is fine. Otherwise you would have to pay for it with your life. I've already arranged it. The wedding is postponed for a year. After we go back, you can explain it to Grandma yourself. The Sue and Rin families have been family friends for generations, and Grandma Sue has always particularly liked Selena since she was little. 5 years ago, when Selena's parents passed away unexpectedly, Grandma Sue immediately took her to the Sue house and publicly arranged her marriage to Christian. She didn't refuse. Instead, She quietly blushed while looking at the tall and handsome boy. Over the years, Selena has always regarded herself as Christian's fiancé, not allowing any other girls to get close to him. Once he is seen getting close to any girl, she throws a fit, making a scene and causing a ruckus. In the circle, they gave her a nickname, calling her the protective tigress. Selena remained unfazed, continuing to do her own thing. But no matter what she did, she couldn't resist the power of the white moonlight returning home. Because of Carolina, her wedding with Christian had already been postponed once. That time, everyone in the capital knew how angry she was. She was on the verge of turning the place upside down, and even Sue's grandma had secretly reminded her not to go too far. So, when Christian said it again, everyone present held their breath, fearing she would cause a scene again. Selena only lowered her head obediently. All right, I'll do as you say. Christian was stunned for a long time. He had thought that Selena would definitely cry and throw a tantrum, and even prepared means to violently suppress her. But upon seeing her agree so obediently, a sense of unease and irritation inexplicably surged in his heart, as if he felt that things were slipping out of his control, and he instinctively retreated. If you think the postponement is too long, you can also. No need. Selena smiled and refused. Whether it was postponed for a year or 10 years, or even cancelled, it no longer mattered to her. Christian doesn't know. She made a deal with the spirits of the mountain. In 7 days, she will marry another man in place of the spirit. At that time, if he wants to postpone love, he can postpone it. If he wants to change brides, he can change them. Everything will no longer be related to her. Before leaving, the rescue team tried to help Selena up, but were surprised to find she couldn't stand at all. After the food in her backpack was completely gone, Selena went hungry for several days. When she was so hungry that she felt dizzy, her survival instinct drove her to risk climbing a tree over 10 meters high in search of food. Fortunately, she successfully picked the fruit from the tree and ate it. Unfortunately, the fruit was poisonous. As soon as she swallowed it, she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen and fell directly from the tree. When she woke up, both of her legs were broken. The temporary doctor from the rescue team couldn't handle such injuries and quickly contacted a nearby hospital. Why didn't you tell me you were hurt so badly? At that moment, Selena found it somewhat amusing. If she could contact the outside world, why would she have been trapped in this godforsaken place for an entire month? Christian also realized the flaws in his words from her silence, and he rarely lowered his head to her. I'm sorry for leaving you here alone. It was thoughtless of me, but don't worry, I will definitely heal your leg. Christian was originally going to hug her, but behind him, Carolina let out a timely gasp. Oh no! Then, she swayed and fell down, instinctively pushing Selena away. Christian quickly caught Carolina in his arms, his eyes filled with guilt and concern. Carolina, how are you? It's nothing, just that my leg still hurts a bit. I already told you that your leg isn't healed yet, so you shouldn't have come along. But I'm worried, Selena. Carolina's eyes immediately turned red. After all, with Selena in this condition, I also have a responsibility. Selena was pushed into the grass. Her elbow seemed to be cut by something, leaving a painful gash. Christian didn't even glance at her, picking up Carolina and running out of the forest. Fortunately, the rescue team's young man carried her to the nearest hospital. One can only say that Christian was still too confident too early. After a comprehensive assessment of Selena's injuries, the doctor tactfully suggested that her leg might not be treatable. Moreover, various organs in her body had shown a certain degree of failure, and her digestive tract had severely atrophied due to long-term lack of nutritional intake, facing the risk of having 3/4 of her stomach removed. Hearing this, Christian nearly flipped the doctor's desk over. What do you mean it can't be treated? How is it even possible that it can't be treated? Selena's leg is just a little fracture, right? On what basis do you say she will never be able to stand again? Carolina quickly comforted Christian. It's okay. This hospital can't treat it well. We'll go to the city for treatment, and if that doesn't work, we can send her abroad. There will always be a way. Did you forget? My brother is a renowned surgeon. Christian's brow remained tightly furrowed, but his expression seemed to relax a bit, unsure if he was truly absorbing Carolina's words or just comforting himself. Yes, there will definitely be a way. Selena was rushed to the best hospital in the city overnight. Carolina's brother Justin personally examined her and reached a conclusion that was completely opposite to that of the previous hospital. Selena's leg is nothing serious. It will be fine after a couple of days. As for organ failure, that's completely out of the question. The book clearly states that a person can survive without food for at least 5 weeks. I think that Selena was too delicate, which led to the previous doctor's misdiagnosis. The words implied that Selena was a complete liar. Perhaps the discrepancy in the diagnosis was too great. Christian's expression appeared somewhat complex, even uncertainly asking, "Really?" "Of course it's real." Carolina skillfully linked her arm through his, her voice soft yet tinged with a hint of reproach. "Do you still not believe my brother?" "Yeah." Justin also frowned. "It's my family, Carolina, whose leg injury has been acting up for a month. If I had known that being by your side would lead to someone trying to murder me, I would never have let her go out with you." At this point, Christian completely believed it, and all that remained in his gaze towards Selena was disappointment and anger. Instead, Carolina pulled at her brother's sleeve and began to explain. "Selena may have pushed me, but I believe she certainly didn't mean it. She just loves Christian too much, which is why she would do such a foolish thing. I don't blame her at all. No wonder they are siblings. She and Justin are used to saying such twisted things." It sounds like an excuse, but in reality, it pours all the dirty water onto the other person. Just like a month ago on Mount Wailing, she was clearly whispering in Selena's ear, "Your parents must have committed too many sins to die in the mountains, right? I heard their bodies were completely devoured by wild animals. They must have died a terrible death. Who knows what heinous acts they committed." But before Selena could retort, she had already fallen down herself, the entire right leg, drenched in blood. Christian immediately slapped Selena across the face, throwing her onto Mount Wailing. "You crazy person. If Carolina has any issues, you just stay here for the rest of your life." Selena cried and begged him not to do this. At that time, her parents died during an outdoor adventure. Since then, she has been afraid of the outdoors, afraid of animals, and even more afraid of this eerie, dense primeval forest. If it weren't for the fact that she wanted to be with Christian all the time, she would never have come here to explore. But now Christian wants to leave her here to fend for herself. Selena cried, trembling all over, her thumb tightly gripping the side of her middle finger, her voice changing pitch. "Please don't treat me like this. I swear, I won't dare again. I won't dare anymore. I will never follow you again. I will run far away. Please don't leave me here." I don't know which words angered Christian, his face showing even more rage. "All right, Selena. You really did well." Selena was left behind by the team. They left her with nothing but a bag of food. As her thoughts gathered, Selena realized that her lips had already been bitten until they bled, and a sharp, prickling pain gradually spread throughout her body. Christian gripped her hand tightly. "Hurry up and apologize to Carolina." His strength was too great, directly tearing open the wound on Selena's elbow again. Blood dripped down the arm onto the white sheets, like a beast opening its bloody maw. As the memories of Mount Wailing resurfaced, Selena instinctively flinched, but was forcefully held down by Christian. Following the direction of the blood flow, he was surprised to find a wound over 10 centimeters long on Selena's elbow, with flesh and blood spilling out. "Aren't you the one who said you had checked it carefully? How could Selena have such a large wound on her hand?" Christian's expression changed instantly, glaring at Justin as if he wanted to devour him. I. Justin stammered for a long time, unable to say anything. In fact, he didn't perform any tests on Selena. Throughout the process, he simply locked Selena in the examination room, occasionally casting a disgusted glance at her. "I originally wanted to give you a thorough examination." His words dripped with a sticky emphasis that made Selena feel nauseous. "But looking at you like this, neither human nor ghost, I can't be bothered to touch you." Seeing the situation was not good, Carolina quickly redirected the focus back to Selena. "Selena, how did you suddenly get such a wound on your hand? You didn't deliberately do this to refuse the wedding postponement, did you? As she spoke, she quietly gave Justin a glance, and he immediately understood. Yeah, when I was just examined, there was nothing, so you must have secretly taken my scalpel and cut it yourself when I wasn't paying attention. Habitual liar. Hopeless. Christian was so angry that his voice was trembling. Selena, I'm telling you, this wedding date is going to be postponed whether you like it or not. Throughout the whole time, Selena only defended herself once at the very beginning. I didn't. After being interrupted by Christian's scolding, she stopped speaking and quietly watched, as if she no longer cared. When she heard the last part, she even lowered her head and softly replied, okay. As they left the ward, Christian was still quite angry, and Carolina, while trying to calm him down, suggested, I see Selena's temperament is difficult to change in a short time. What she can do to hurt herself today, who knows how capricious she will be tomorrow. Christian clearly listened, his eyes dark as night, like a black cloud pressing down on the city. Seeing the situation, Carolina increased the stakes. I think using the wedding postponement as leverage doesn't scare her. How about we just cancel the engagement with her? No way. Without even thinking, Christian refused. Why? Knowing Selena's personality, if she finds out I want to cancel the engagement, as if imagining Selena's reaction, Christian's lips curled into a faint yet affectionate smile, instinctively turning the engagement ring on his finger. She would definitely cause a scene. She is indeed willful and reckless, but my engagement with her has long been established and cannot possibly be cancelled. Isn't that what you said? It takes a strong remedy to cure her outrageous behavior. I intend to teach her a lesson. Thinking of Selena's emaciated face, her horrifically injured legs, and the deep, visible wounds on her arms, Christian felt a pang of compassion in his heart. But she has already learned enough lessons. But enough. Christian interrupted Carolina directly. I know what I'm doing. Saying this, she glanced at her with a somewhat strange look. Carolina immediately changed her tone. Christian is right. I was overthinking it. Hiss. Before she could finish her sentence, a look of pain appeared on her face. Is your leg starting to hurt again? Christian could no longer care about anything else and nervously picked her up in a horizontal position. Where's the doctor? Hurry and call the doctor. Selena has been recuperating in the hospital for 2 days. The nurse would regularly apply medicine to her leg, but it was just some antiseptic and anti-inflammatory powder. The wound has not yet scabbed over, and applying these things often causes her excruciating pain. As a result, the flowing medicinal supplements were fed into Selena's mouth, and the nutrient solution hummed day and night. Yet she became even thinner, so thin that it seemed like it would shatter with a single pinch. When Christian entered, he saw her sweating in pain, her teeth clenched on her lower lip, barely holding back her cries. But clearly, in the past, Selena was very delicate. Even a prick from a needle would make her cry out in distress, and he would have to comfort her for quite a while before she would calm down. How could things change so much in just a month? My heart felt like it was being violently twisted. Are you even capable of applying the medication? Christian snatched the medicine from the nurse's hand, his tone chillingly cold. The young nurse repeatedly apologized. I'm sorry, Mr. Sue. I really didn't mean to. The medicine box fell to the ground, making a loud crash that startled Selena. The young nurse seized the opportunity to slip away. Christian held up the medicine bottle, a swirl of complex emotions in his eyes, and finally sighed. Aren't you going to cry out in pain? Weren't you the one who used to love to complain about me in front of others? He didn't say the second half of the sentence, waiting for Selena to show weakness and back down. He has already given her enough leeway. Even regarding Selena intentionally hurting Carolina, he could let it go. Selena should admit her mistake, no matter how stubborn she is. As long as she lowers her head and apologizes to him, and acts a little cute to plead with him, he might consider not postponing the wedding for a whole year, perhaps 6 months, or maybe 3 months, or even, as long as you recognize your mistakes and sincerely apologize to Carolina. I am not unable to forgive you. After speaking, he confidently waited for Selena to respond. and Selena apologized just as he expected. I'm sorry. I apologize for the mistakes I made in the past. Regarding the postponement of the wedding, I will personally talk to Grandma. If you want, I can also take the initiative to propose breaking off the engagement. From beginning to end, his attitude was calm and sincere, but Christian was so angry that his voice seemed to tremble. What did you say? Do you even know what you're saying? Just because I left you on Mount Wailing, you think you can say such things to provoke me? Do you really think I can't marry anyone else but you? The rapid-fire questions made Selena headache. Suddenly, she couldn't remember why she had fallen for such a stubborn and self-centered man in the first place. In the end, the conversation concluded with Christian storming out. The news of Selena's hospitalization still reached Sue's grandma. On the 4th day after she was rescued from Mount Wailing, the old lady came to the hospital in person. Upon seeing her grandma, Selena first joyfully rushed into her arms, but then inexplicably shed tears of grievance. During the month at Mount Wailing, Selena thought about when Christian would come to pick her up. She promised to behave and never cling to him again. Later, she gradually fell into despair. In the fog-shrouded mountains, the most common sight for her, besides her deceased parents, was the kind Sue grandma. She remembered that when her parents died, it was Sue grandma who held her in her arms, comforting her over and over again. When she was burning with fever all night out of fear, it was also Sue grandma who stayed by her bedside, feeding her medicine while calling her name. Selena. My Selena. The moment the old lady saw Selena's pained expression, she was filled with rage. What has happened to my Selena? How could you still be giving her this kind of medicine? You bunch of quacks. Are you trying to kill my Selena on purpose? Discharge her. We need to discharge her right now. Grandma will take you to find the best doctor. Justin was so scared that his legs went weak. He could only call someone to fetch Carolina while desperately clinging to the doorframe to maintain his composure. Old lady, I am the most famous surgical expert in the city. My diagnosis will not be wrong. Selena is just too spoiled. To put it bluntly, she is just putting on a show for you. In reality, there's nothing going on, so why make such a fuss? Although the old lady does not participate in business matters, she has been immersed in the vast Sioux family for decades, exuding a demeanor that is unmatched by ordinary people. With a swing of the dragon-headed cane, Justin was struck, screaming and fleeing in panic. The old lady was not one to hesitate either, immediately calling her subordinates in. Just as they were preparing to carry Selena out, Carolina barged in. Why is the old lady suddenly so angry? Did Selena say something in front of you? Though she lowered her head, her gaze toward Selena was indeed as venomous as poison. Selena has always had a prejudice against me, and she has even come to resent my brother. Old lady, you, with a loud slap. A resounding slap landed on Carolina's face. What kind of thing are you? Does Christian not know? Do you think I'm blind too? Your brother, the chief surgeon, has spent how much of the Sioux family's money behind your back? You know in your heart. Christian is blind to your worth, and I can't control him. Do you think I can't do anything to you either? The old lady took matters into her own hands, and naturally, no one dared to stop her. Even Justin could only shrink back into the corner, not daring to make a sound. One slap after another fell, quickly turning Carolina's face red and swollen. The old lady was still not satisfied and kicked Carolina in the chest. Carolina should have fallen, but was caught in the arms of Christian just in time. Carolina cried with tear-streaked cheeks, struggling to cover her face marked with fingerprints, her voice trembling. Christian, I don't know what Selena really said to the old lady. If she truly can't stand me, then I'll keep my distance and never be a burden to you. But, can I ask her to show some mercy and stop targeting me? Looking at the mess in the room, the old lady's hands still raised, Christian's face turned pale as he protectively shielded Carolina. Who does she think she is? Why can't she accept you? You stay by my side, and you're not allowed to go anywhere. With that, his gaze fixed on Selena in the hospital bed as if she were an enemy. So you really love to stir up trouble, don't you? All right. Don't you want to break off the engagement? He took off the ring from his left ring finger and threw it out of the window with force. Then let's break it off. Sue grandma was so angry that she fainted on the spot. The ward was in chaos. Selena wanted to help but fell off the bed. The drip was torn, and the medicine spilled everywhere. The legs that were originally wrapped in bandages were seeping with patches of blood. Grandma, Grandma. She used her remaining hands to push herself forward, each step extremely laborious. But just as she was about to touch Grandma's hand, she was stopped by Christian. What do you want to do? I just want to see if Grandma is okay. Selena humbly crouched in front of Christian, grabbing his pant leg, hoping to gain a shred of compassion so she could see how Grandma was doing. But Christian directly kicked her hand away. Stop pretending to be innocent. Would your grandma be this upset if it weren't for you? Aren't you just trying to use Grandma to vent your own frustrations? How old is Grandma now? Don't you care at all about her health? Selena, how could you be so malicious? Having said that, he hugged Carolina and walked straight away. Before leaving, tucked in his arms, Carolina looked at the helpless Selena with an incredibly smug expression, mouthing a single word, "You deserve it." Sue grandma has been in a coma for 2 whole days. Sue father and Sue mother rushed over overnight, furious, and slapped Christian on the spot. This is how you take care of your grandma. If the media outside catches this, where will our Sue family's face go? Sue father was obviously very angry, and that slap was delivered without holding back. Soon, Christian was left with a bright red handprint on his face. Sue was heartbroken for her son, quickly calming her husband and giving her son a knowing look. What on earth happened? How could the old lady suddenly faint? Carolina spoke up first. Selena got into trouble some time ago, and Christian gave her a small punishment. But who would have thought that Selena actually reported it to the old lady? I don't even know what she said to the old lady, but it actually made the old lady faint from anger. With a vague explanation, she easily shifted all the blame onto Selena. Hearing Sue mother frown, this Selena really doesn't know what she's talking about. It was one thing when her parents were around, but now what does the Wren family have left? Haven't all their assets been divided up by her uncles and aunts? If it weren't for our Sue family, she would have been an orphan long ago. Yet she still dares to act so recklessly. Christian, although still angry, upon hearing himself belittle Selena like this, he couldn't help but defend her. Mom, Uncle Wren has helped us a lot in the past. If it weren't for the funds from the Wren family, we might be in trouble. All right, let's not talk about the past anymore. Sue father interrupted Christian, casting a pointed glance at Carolina, and said seriously, I heard that you proposed to break off the engagement with Selena. Christian didn't respond, but Sue mother began to mumble. Breaking off is fine. What does she have besides her looks? Relying on the old lady's affection. Her personality is spoiled and knows no bounds. If she really married into the family, who knows how much trouble it would cause? Christian subconsciously wanted to refuse. Although he lost the engagement ring and made harsh remarks, he never truly considered breaking off the engagement with Selena in his heart. Carolina quickly held his hand and whispered softly, your parents are really upset right now, so don't provoke them further. As she spoke, she smiled at Sue's mother. There's no rush to break off the engagement. It's just that the old lady's health can't take any more stress. How about we send Selena abroad first, and once the old lady's health improves, we can discuss it further. All right. It's settled. After Sue father left, Christian let out a long sigh and held Carolina's hand tightly. Thank you. Otherwise, just now, in a fit of anger, Sue father really might have forced Christian and Selena to break off the engagement. If that happened, he would truly be in a dilemma. Carolina understood and smiled gently. What's there to thank for? With Selena acting this way towards you, you still help her. Selena is just being childish. Am I really going to hold that against her? After calming Christian, Carolina finally had time to visit her brother, who had nearly had a rib broken. Justin grimaced in pain while applying medicine to himself. Still complaining, why did you have to stir up such a scene and bring that dead old woman over here? Carolina looked at him with a mix of disappointment and frustration. Sighing, do you really think Selena's injuries can be hidden for long? What if she actually dies because of you? Do you think Christian will let you off the hook? Don't even mention that your position as chief surgeon will be revoked. Your life might not be safe either. Justin became anxious. It was you who told me to keep Selena's condition a secret in the first place. You can't just abandon me now. So, I went to great lengths to set this up. Just to send Selena abroad. Once she has an accident overseas, no one will be able to blame us. Only if she dies can Christian's bride be replaced without question. The departure date is set for 2 days later. During these 2 days, Selena has been kept alone in the ward. Every day, there are nurses and bodyguards guarding inside and outside the ward, as if afraid she might run out and cause trouble. But clearly, she can't even stand up. Christian has had his doubts, but they were all covered up by Justin. Selena's leg has actually been fine for a long time, but she refuses to stand up. And there's nothing I can do. Once she's sent abroad, she won't be able to pretend to be pitiful in front of you anymore. Maybe then she'll be able to stand up. Christian's face darkened again. It seems that after spending a month at Mount Wailing, you still haven't learned your lesson. He couldn't understand why Selena was always so willful, even using her own body as a bargaining chip to threaten him. Yet, in his heart, he couldn't help but feel a secret joy because of Selena's concern for him. However, Selena didn't show the panic he imagined. She simply asked, "Is Grandma still doing well?" "How dare you mention Grandma?" Christian was even more furious, saying, "If it weren't for you reporting to Grandma and making her travel all this way, how could she have fainted?" "It wasn't me," Selena softly defended herself. "What?" Christian heard it but refused to believe. After all, he never believed. Selena thought to herself as she closed her eyes again. 2 days later was the day she would leave forever. Perhaps it was to make her stay abroad forever. All of Selena's belongings were packed and sent over. Clothes, jewelry, and more importantly, the paintings she made for Christian, after being taken to Sue's house. At first, she was always sullen. Although Grandma Sue would comfort her, the elderly woman was getting old and sometimes felt powerless. So Grandma Sue let Christian accompany her. Christian would hold her hand to walk out of the house, take her to see the fireworks all over the city, and gently wipe away the tears from her face when she missed her mom and dad. "Don't worry. I will always be with you." Selena began to secretly draw Christian. Front, side, bowing, smiling. Every movement was saved in her heart and drawn on paper, especially on the day they got engaged. Selena felt like she truly came alive. It was as if there was finally someone in this world who would never leave her. So she spent a month specifically drawing a picture of her and Christian kissing. But before she could send her drawing, Carolina landed. That was the first time Christian actively let go of her hand. "Selena, be good. I'm going to pick someone up. I'll be back soon." But until deep into the night, Christian still hadn't returned. It was from that day on that Christian never called her Selena again, but instead addressed her by her full name, Selena. Her paintings could no longer be sent out, yet her heart could not be brought back. No matter what, until she ate that red fruit on Mount Wailing. The deadly flesh of the fruit tore her apart with just one bite. She knew she was going to die. In her final moments, the obsessions of the past looped endlessly, ultimately turning to dust. It was from that moment on that she completely gave up. If her heart couldn't be reclaimed, then she didn't want it anymore. Just like Christian, she didn't want it. At the brink of death, a voice suddenly echoed in my ear. "Do you want to live? I can make a deal with you." In a daze, she heard herself ask, "What kind of deal?" The spirit had no physical form, yet the voice carried a fragile beauty. "I can use my remaining spiritual power to help you survive. But after leaving here, your soul will need to enter my body to fulfill my unfinished wish." "What is your wish?" "To marry Noah and be with him forever." "Why don't you go back?" The spirit seemed to let out a low laugh, but it sounded more painful than crying. "I have been drifting here for 3 years. Even if I go out, I will only be lost. You are my only hope." "All right, I promise to make a deal with you." The sunlight outside suddenly pierced Selena's eyes. The airport check-in staff on the other end of the phone asked her, "Miss Wren, the list of checked luggage has been sent over. Please check it and see if anything is missing." "No need," Selena said. "Just throw it all away for me. I don't want it." "What do you mean you don't want it?" Christian suddenly walked in, his expression somewhat hesitant as he asked. Selena hung up the phone, just glanced at him, and gently shook her head. A few old clothes. Seeing her indifferent expression, Christian felt a strange discomfort in his heart. Yet he couldn't back down, and his tone became odd. Sending you abroad is to make you reflect properly, so you won't keep causing trouble all day. Selena obediently nodded. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Seeing that she finally obeyed, Christian felt even more uneasy, as if something was slipping out of his control. All right, the car is waiting downstairs. Outside the door, Carolina walked in, affectionately linking her arm with Christian's, her expression as natural as that of the sweetest lovers. If it were in the past, seeing them so close, Selena would have rushed over like a madwoman to pull them apart. But today, Selena just quietly watched, the corners of her mouth even curling up into a faint smile of relief. Christian's heart skipped a beat. You guys go ahead. I'll be down in a bit. After saying that, Selena turned her head and no longer looked at them. Selena must be throwing another little tantrum. Carolina smiled with her hand over her mouth, her peripheral vision watching Christian's every move, and only after seeing him breathe a sigh of relief did she pull him out of the ward. Even though it's abroad, it's only a matter of tens of thousands of kilometers. If you want to see Selena, you can fly over anytime, or bring her back. Carolina smiled gently. If she doesn't change her temper, then never come back again. Christian was still feeling displeased by Selena's cold behavior earlier. She clearly should have begged him. As long as she acted a little cute and said she would change, he wouldn't insist on sending her so far away. After all, she is still young and has been spoiled. Living alone abroad must be frightening, right? Ah, a gasp interrupted Christian's thoughts. When he turned to look, Selena was sitting on the windowsill of the third floor, her legs weakly swinging back and forth like autumn leaves, ready to be blown away by the wind. Selena. At that moment, Christian could hardly breathe. He shook off the hand of the person beside him and desperately ran toward Selena. Selena, what are you doing? Don't be willful. We can talk about anything. Please don't. However, his words were left unfinished as Selena leapt from the windowsill. A white figure fell like a bird with broken wings, gracefully descending to the ground. In that moment, Christian felt his heart nearly stop. His entire body, even his mind, could not function normally, and the only thought that crossed his mind was, I must catch Selena. His body reacted before his brain could. He ran desperately to the window below, trying to reach out and catch that white figure. Fortunately, he did manage to catch her. Unfortunately, the third floor was too high, and Selena was falling too fast. Even though he caught her, it only provided a slight cushioning force to her body, preventing her from hitting the ground and instead allowing her to land on the lawn. As a consequence, Christian's two arms were twisted into a terrible position. Doctors from the entire hospital rushed down. Those carrying stretchers carried stretchers. Those stopping the bleeding stopped the bleeding, and those performing CPR performed CPR. Even Carolina, who knew nothing about medicine, eagerly ran forward wanting to help in any way she could. Only Justin, the most authoritative chief surgeon in the hospital, stood there in a daze, not daring to move at all. Yet all the doctors were already accustomed to this situation. Who doesn't know that Justin's title as chief was bought with money from the Sioux family? At this moment, asking him to save someone is no different from committing a crime in the street. A large group of medical staff brought the two injured patients into the operating room. Hearing the news, Sue's father and Sue's mother hurriedly contacted the best doctors in the country to come assist. The lights in the operating room remained on for a full 48 hours. New doctors continuously rushed in to take over, and bloodied gauze was constantly sent out. Even Sue's grandma, who was still recuperating in the hospital, was stirred and insisted on sitting in a wheelchair at the door of the operating room. She was very clear that if she didn't come, Christian might have been pushed out alive. But Selena was uncertain. After such an incident, none of Ren's family showed up, not even to offer a word of condolence, let alone how much Sue's father and Sue's mother could care. Finally, in the early hours of the third day, Christian was the first to be pushed out. Vital signs were stable, both hands barely saved, but it was unlikely he would be able to function like a normal person. Upon hearing this, Sue's mother didn't know if it was out of excitement, but her eyes rolled back and she fainted. Sue's grandma hurriedly grabbed the doctor and asked, "What about Selena? How is my Selena?" The doctor sighed. "The situation is not optimistic. The family should prepare for the possibility that the patient may never wake up." Grandma Sue nearly fainted as well. 2 days passed. Christian finally woke up. The first thing he did upon waking was to ask the nurse beside him, "How is Selena?" The nurse timidly did not dare to speak. That day, Selena chose to jump from the third-floor ward, and Christian rushed up without a second thought to catch her. This incident had already spread throughout the hospital. She was truly worried that if she spoke up, it would lead to some unimaginable consequences. The nurse's hesitant expression fell into Christian's eyes, causing his heart to begin to ache uncontrollably. "Selena. My Selena!" Despite having both hands in casts, he still managed to tear the floor line and got up from the bed, running towards the exit of the ward. He searched room by room, but he could never find out where Selena was. The connection on his arm burst open from excessive force, blood gushing out and soaking the bandage before dripping onto the floor. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops. Finally, at the top floor of the critical care unit, Christian's face turned pale, almost fainting, yet he still clung to the wall, unwilling to go back. It was only there that he finally saw the person he had been longing for. Selena was connected to various tubes, her whole body so weak that it was almost impossible to see the rise and fall of her chest. At that moment, the nurse finally caught up, and upon seeing his arm, she couldn't help but gasp. But Christian paid no attention, his eyes fixed on the person in the hospital bed. "Selena, when will she finally wake up?" The nurse didn't speak. Instead, Carolina, who had come up with her, had red eyes. "Selena has been in a coma for 2 days. The doctor said her brain suffered severe trauma, and it is very likely she will never wake up." Christian lost his balance and nearly fell to the ground, fortunately being supported by Carolina just in time. "Christian, I know you are very sad, but you also need to take care of yourself. How could this happen?" He clearly just wanted to teach Selena a small lesson, to make her stop being reckless. So why did Selena jump from the 3rd floor? If Selena really doesn't want to go abroad, she could just talk to him properly. Why resort to such extreme measures? He couldn't understand, no matter how hard he tried. The doctor rewrapped his wound and warned him that he absolutely must not move around carelessly like this again. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to save his 2 hands. During this time, Sue's mother also came up to persuade him. Sue's mother was already dissatisfied with Selena. Now seeing her son so lovesick over a woman that he almost lost both his hands, she was even more furious. That Selena can seek death herself, but can't she find a place where no one is around to jump? Why does she have to drag you down with her? Look at you. What has happened to your once fine hands? As she spoke, she covered her face and began to cry. Christian has always been filial to his mother. In the past, if he saw her crying, he would immediately comfort her. But now, he frowned the entire time. "Selena is my fiancée. Saving her is something I must do. If mother continues to say such things, then she should leave first." Sue was extremely angry, and Carolina quickly stepped in to mediate. "Madam is also worried about you. How can you say such things that hurt Madam's feelings? Besides, with Selena in this condition, the engagement cannot continue, so it would be better to temporarily cancel the marriage." Sue's mother also chimed in. "I think Carolina is wonderful. She's well-educated and gentle in nature. If it weren't for going abroad with the Lin family's business back then, you two would have been married long ago. Where would Selena come into the picture now? If you ask me, you might as well marry Carolina." "No way!" Christian refused without a second thought. "I won't marry anyone but Selena." This was no different from publicly slapping Carolina in the face. Sue's mother wanted to say more, but Carolina interrupted her. "Madam, let's wait until Selena wakes up to discuss everything." This seemingly sensible remark should have earned Christian's approval, but throughout, Christian merely stared coldly at the ceiling, his eyes filled with an inescapable sorrow. For the next 2 days, Christian would sit in a wheelchair at the entrance of the critical care unit. Now, whenever he closed his eyes, all he could see was the image of that day when Selena leapt from the window without a care. Hearing his voice, Selena didn't even turn to look at him, as if she didn't care about him at all. So, when did he and Selena start to become like this? He clearly remembers that when Selena first came to Sue's house, she was very attached to him, and he particularly liked this soft and sweet little girl. Due to the death of her parents, Selena was always very sensitive and would cry at the slightest thing. To keep Selena from being so sad, he would rack his brain to come up with all sorts of little ideas to make her happy. His funny faces weren't that great, but Selena would always laugh heartily and support him. On New Year's Eve that night, he specially prepared a city full of fireworks. At the moment the fireworks burst in the sky, Selena asked him with her bright, sparkling eyes, "Are those bright flowers in the sky really my mom and dad watching over me?" "Of course. Mom and dad will always be by your side, just like I am." It was also that night when Christian first kissed Selena on the cheek. Such feelings are hard to describe. It was as if, in that moment, Christian truly possessed the whole world. He still remembers the day they announced their engagement. Selena's vibrant and bright face jumping into his arms asking him, "Are you really willing to marry me?" Chapter 2. He knew that ever since her parents passed away, Selena had become somewhat insecure. She felt like she had become an orphan, unable to compete with those greedy uncles and aunts for their family's fortune. She had nothing left but a sincere heart. But in the eyes of wealthy families, sincerity is sometimes worth nothing. She always doubted whether she should be loved, whether she was worthy of love. So when she asked, it was with a bit of caution, and a hint of unnoticeable grievance. As if the moment the other person gave the wrong answer, she would immediately burst into tears. At that time, Christian felt like his heart was about to shatter. He held Selena's face and gently kissed away the tears on her cheeks. "Of course, I will marry you. You are the only one I will marry in this lifetime." In that moment, he felt as if Selena had truly come alive. With the cautious shell shed, Selena was exceptionally lively and cheerful, as if she had endless energy to proclaim her love every day. Especially when she saw other women trying to approach him, she was like a little lion ready to devour. In the past few times, Christian still found it fresh and interesting. After all, which man doesn't like the feeling of being firmly possessed by the one he loves? But over time, Christian began to grow impatient. He started to hope that Selena could give him a little more space and freedom, and often argued with Selena over trivial matters. Every time it was Selena who came to find him to apologize with red-rimmed eyes, like a frightened little rabbit, her thumb tightly gripping the side of her index finger's pad, a gesture she had when she was nervous or scared. "Christian, I won't do that again in the future. Please don't be angry, okay? Don't push me away. Without you, I have nothing left." Ultimately, from the very beginning, it was Selena who was at a disadvantage in this relationship. It was her who lived in fear, her who begged for forgiveness, and her who was anxious about what she might lose. As for Christian, from start to finish, he only passively accepted the emotional value this relationship brought, holding Selena firmly in his grasp. As for how to soothe Selena's inner turmoil and how to establish an equal love, he never took the initiative to do so. Perhaps deep within him, the sensitive, fragile, and isolated Selena is more suited to take control, allowing him to have a sense of achievement that he will never lose. Thus, this seemingly stable relationship became precarious after Carolina reappeared. Christian remembers Selena expressing many times that she did not want Carolina to get too close to him. But the person he can't live without isn't him. Why should he obediently listen? Gradually, Carolina's gentle care contrasted sharply with Selena's willful mischief. It seemed that from that moment on, he saw disappointment in Selena's eyes for the first time. But he didn't care. He even felt that Selena was just playing hard to get. Selena seemed to slowly return to the state she was in when her parents had just passed away. Sensitive, suspicious, and cautious. Until that time we went Mount Wailing for an adventure. The idea of going Mount Wailing was first suggested by Carolina. Previously, he had not heard that Carolina had a passion for outdoor sports, but he did not refuse either. He just didn't expect that this matter would reach Selena's ears. and she would also insist on going together. When he heard this news, a hint of secret joy even arose in his heart. Selena hates adventures the most, but she is willing to do the thing she hates the most for herself. Christian allowed Selena to follow him. He even thought that when this adventure was over, he could arrange the wedding in advance, which would also give Selena a surprise. But unexpectedly, halfway through, Selena almost killed Carolina. Carolina narrowly fell down the slope. The wound on her leg was covered in fresh blood, deep enough to see the bone, making it particularly terrifying in the eerie jungle. And Selena was glaring at Carolina with a face full of malice, as if she wished to tear her apart. Christian was truly angry. With so many people in the expedition team, almost everyone witnessed Selena committing the act. If this matter got out, how much of a stir would it cause? It could even potentially affect their wedding. After all, Sue's mother has never approved of this marriage. So, he must teach Selena a lesson. He left Selena alone on Mount Wailing for a whole month. Recalling this decision, Christian couldn't help but feel a pang of pain in his heart. It was precisely after returning from Mount Wailing that Selena completely changed. But what Selena did in this matter was indeed too much. Even if she disliked Carolina being close to him, she still couldn't kill someone. Christian has a splitting headache. It always feels like there are some details he has overlooked. After calming down, he called his assistant to ask him to look into something. In addition, he had his assistant contact the best neurology hospital in the country, preparing to send Selena there. Carolina, upon hearing this information, immediately spoke up to stop. Selena is so badly injured right now. Transferring her at this time might not be a good idea, right? Christian furrowed his brow. Selena has been here for a week, and there are no signs of improvement. I have already made arrangements. If it doesn't work out domestically, we'll send her abroad directly. I will personally accompany her throughout the process. But, Christian interrupted Carolina's words. I have already set the time. A professional team will take over Selena's condition tomorrow. Carolina immediately fell silent, finally forcing out a somewhat unnatural smile. After leaving Christian's ward, she quickly found Justin. We have to take action tonight. Justin was so shocked that he fell directly from his chair. But didn't you say we should wait until we go abroad to act? If we do it here, what if they trace it back to us? I can't worry about that anymore. Even if we go abroad now, Christian will follow us the whole time, leaving us no chance to act. Carolina's frown deepened. Besides, even if we don't go abroad, as long as we transfer to another hospital, which doctor wouldn't be able to find out about Selena's issues? At that point, all the lies we told before will be exposed. Justin has never been someone who can handle things. Back then, after the Lin family moved abroad, their investment strategy failed, and Lin's father jumped to his death under the burden of billions in debt, while Lin's mother fell seriously ill, leaving the entire burden of the Lin family on Justin. But Justin? He actually packed up all the remaining valuables in the house overnight, causing Carolina and Lin's mother to be blocked at the door by creditors. If it weren't for Carolina's cleverness, they would have probably been sold off to some filthy place by those ruthless people long ago. If it weren't for Lin grasping her hand on her deathbed and urging her to help her brother, she wouldn't have said a word to Justin, nor would she have used Christian's name to flaunt and deceive others. Helping Justin secure this chief surgeon position, Carolina glanced at Justin, who was already so frightened that he was at a loss for words, stammering for a long time without being able to say a complete sentence. And she steeled herself. Isn't the nurse taking care of Selena your friend? You tell her that as long as she puts a little drug into Selena's four, she will die without knowing a thing. As long as Selena's body remains in this hospital, we have a way to ensure no one can find out. That night, while the nurse was changing Selena's dressings, she quietly took out a vial of pink injection from her pocket. The temperature in the critical care unit wasn't high, but the nurse was already sweating profusely, and even her hand holding the syringe was trembling uncontrollably. With one careless move, she dropped the syringe on the floor. She was about to bend down to pick it up. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of her. Before she could even speak, the bodyguard had already lifted her up and thrown her out the door. Waiting for her outside with a face full of anger was Christian. The nurse turned pale and fainted. Trembling, Christian just waved his hand, and immediately someone poured a bucket of ice water over the nurse's head. The bone-chilling cold spread throughout her body, and the nurse immediately regained consciousness. The tube that had fallen on the ground was picked up again by the assistant. It has already been tested. It contains a potent neuroparalytic poison. Just 0.1 milligrams will cause the injected person to die from respiratory failure, especially in a severe coma state like Miss Wren's. There probably won't even be a chance to call out. Christian had the nurse restrained, his expression cold and fierce, as if he were looking at a corpse. "Who made you do this?" The nurse trembled, unable to utter a single discernible word. One of the bodyguards immediately stomped hard on the nurse's ankle. The excruciating pain caused the nurse to scream uncontrollably. If the bodyguard hadn't quickly covered her mouth, the entire hospital would have heard her cries. "Who made you do this?" Christian asked again. This time, the nurse didn't even dare to hesitate. She just collapsed on the ground and cried out in despair. "It was Carolina and Justin. They were the ones who made me do it." Christian felt as if all the blood in his body was rushing to the top of his head, and he had to suppress it with all his might just to spit out a few words that squeezed through his teeth. Why? Because after coming out of Mount Wailing, Miss Wren's legs were already broken, and her organs had severely atrophied. She simply couldn't be dragged along any longer. But Carolina colluded with Justin to create the illusion in front of you that Miss Wren's body was perfectly fine. Yesterday, she heard that you were going to transfer Miss Wren to another hospital, and she was afraid that the previous matters would be discovered by the other hospital. So she asked me to take action first. Not only that, but Carolina specifically instructed me to mix some spicy powder, like chili powder, into the medicine every time I give Miss Wren her medication, so that Miss Wren could suffer a bit more and also to stir up conflict between you and Miss Wren. Furthermore, originally Carolina's plan was for me to follow Miss Wren abroad and then find an opportunity to poison her food, letting her die quietly outside. But she didn't expect Miss Wren to jump off the building on the day of departure, so these things couldn't be accomplished. As she spoke, the nurse cried harder and became more frightened, her voice trembling almost uncontrollably. From start to finish, I was coerced by those two siblings. That Justin can't even hold a scalpel. He relies entirely on Carolina to throw money and resources to become the chief physician. Who in this hospital doesn't know that Carolina has you as her backer? That money and those resources all come from the Sue family. As long as I want to continue working in this hospital, I have to listen to them. These words struck Christian like a series of thunderclaps, leaving him momentarily stunned. It turned out that Selena's injuries had already been quite serious. Every time she cried out in pain, it was a plea for help to him. But what did he do? He acted like a complete fool, being led around by Carolina and Justin. At that moment, Christian's assistant received a phone call. It was over a month ago. One of the team members who went to Mount Wailing for an adventure with Christian and Selena. Recently, the call that Christian made to his assistant was to have him thoroughly investigate the matters at Mount Wailing. The team member told Christian that in order to go Mount Wailing for an adventure, he had prepared several high-definition recording devices in advance, one worn on his chest and the other attached to his backpack throughout the journey. Because he originally only intended to record his own journey and was afraid that others would have opinions, he did not tell anyone about carrying the recording equipment, and afterwards he only planned to edit some footage related to himself. However, some time ago, while he was reviewing the contents of the storage card in preparation for editing the video, he unexpectedly discovered that the equipment behind him had captured some things. He originally didn't plan to take these things out. After all, he didn't want to offend Carolina. It wasn't until yesterday that the assistant found him. Soon, Christian got hold of that video. The angle of the video wasn't great, but it still clearly recorded the entire process of the argument between Selena and Carolina. Carolina intentionally walked over to Selena and said something with a smug expression. The assistant had a minor in sign language during college, so they could accurately interpret the content of lip movements. He repeated word for word according to Carolina's lip movements. "Your parents must have committed too many sins to die in the mountains, right? I heard their bodies were completely devoured by wild animals. They must have died a terrible death. Who knows what heinous acts they committed." As soon as those words were spoken, Carolina fell down by herself. Even during the fall, She managed to pull out a small knife from her pocket and plunged it fiercely into her own wound. Then came Christian, rushing over in anger and slapping Selena across the face. Poor Selena had no chance to argue and was left alone in that eerie, terrifying place. So that's how it is. I can't believe it. No wonder Selena cried out. I will never follow you again. I will run far away. Please don't leave me here. At that moment, she must have been very disappointed, right? Being casually discarded by the person she thought she could trust for a lifetime, near the Mount Wailing where her parents had tragically died. How scared she must have been. She must hate the person who abandoned her to death. If it weren't for his hands being in casts, Christian would even want to grab his head and smash it against the wall, just to clearly feel the despair in Selena's heart when she was abandoned. The overwhelming regret merged into a raging fire at this moment. Bring Carolina and Justin over here. When he was yanked off the bed, Justin was lying on top of a woman. The woman was startled and screamed in panic, while Justin was pounding on the bed, furious and helpless. Who are you people? Do you know who I am? I am a genius chief surgeon. I am also Christian's brother-in-law. Once my sister marries into the Sioux family, I will make sure to take down all of you ungrateful fools. Carolina was unable to sleep all night. As the time they had agreed upon drew closer, there was still no message from any of the nurses on her phone. Even the calls she made went unanswered. Looking at the clock on the wall, she couldn't help but feel a bit anxious and uneasy. Just as she was pacing back and forth in her bedroom, a group of bodyguards rushed in, and without saying a word, they bound her hands and took her away. At that moment, her inner unease was magnified completely, until she finally saw Christian. Christian, what's going on? Carolina raised her bound wrists. Susu asked pitifully, her eyes reflecting the usual frailty and helplessness. The bodyguard coldly tossed the tube of pink potion in front of her. Soon after, Justin was brought up as well. Justin clearly had suffered, with every exposed part of his skin marked in shades of purple and blue. Upon seeing Carolina, he shouted frantically, pointing at her, "It's this bitch. It's all this bitch is doing. I'm a doctor. How could I possibly do something so inhumane? It's all because she wanted to marry into the Sioux family, so she went to great lengths to get rid of Selena. I was forced into this." Carolina was momentarily stunned. She had thought there would be such an ending, but she didn't expect it to come so quickly. So, she desperately climbed to Christian's side and took out the speech she had prepared earlier. Christian, how can you believe the nonsense of an outsider? How could I possibly have the guts to harm Selena? Don't you remember? On Mount Wailing, I almost got pushed off the cliff by Selena. Saying this, she lifted her skirt, revealing the still hideous scar on her calf. You saw all of this with your own eyes back then. As long as you put yourself in the position of the victim, you can always gain some sympathy, more or less. This is the most important thing that Carolina has learned over the years. But Christian did not show her the sympathy or pity she wished for. Instead, he looked at her with near disgust. Mount Wailing was where you clearly fell yourself. You used Selena's parents to provoke her, and then you pinned all of this on Selena. You truly are despicable. Carolina's mind was a blank. She had no idea which step had gone wrong, and why Christian would know all of this. But at this moment, she had no time to think further and could only desperately cling to Christian's pant leg, pleading, "Christian, you clearly like me too. Have you forgotten? We were each other's first love, and I gave you my best years. Have you really forgotten? Selena is the third party between us, and now she is almost dead. Can't we just get back together?" It was unclear which of her words had completely enraged Christian, but he kicked Carolina hard in the chest, with a deadly force. The kick made Carolina vomit blood on the spot, unrepentant, turning black into white. In Carolina's ears, there were countless terrifying echoes, the smell of fresh blood at her nose, and her vision was almost completely blurred. The only thing that can be certain is that Christian will not let her go. She suddenly began to laugh maniacally, her throat hoarse, her appearance utterly ungraceful. "Christian, are you feeling embarrassed and angry?" "That's right. I was the one pretending to fall on Mount Wailing, but I wasn't the one who gave the order to leave Selena all alone there. It's clearly you who can't let go of both sides. unable to part with either the new love or the old flame. Which is why you pushed Selena to the brink of suicide. Now Selena is almost dead. Yet you still don't know regret, only knowing how to throw dirt on others. If we're talking about someone who doesn't know how to repent and distorts the truth, that person should be you. Christian wanted very much to tell Carolina to be quiet, but he just couldn't bring himself to say it, because he had to admit that what Carolina said was all true. The one who left Selena alone on Mount Wailing was him. The one who used the wedding postponement as a bargaining chip was also him. Seeing Selena in excruciating pain, yet still feeling that she was just pretending to be the pitiful one was him. The one who made Sue Grandma sick with anger, and stubbornly insisted on sending Selena abroad to teach her a lesson was still him. That's why Selena would jump down without hesitation. And that's why she wouldn't even want to look at him one more time before dying. Because the culprit is him. A tearing pain surged through his heart, almost making Christian gasp for breath. Before losing consciousness, he still heard himself shouting, "I'm sorry, Selena. I'm sorry." When Selena opened her eyes, the first person she saw was Noah. Chapter 3. It was a strange feeling. She couldn't remember her name or her identity. Yet in the very first moment of opening her eyes, she could call out his name, Noah. The man's warm palm immediately supported the back of her slightly raised head, as if afraid that she might lose control and hurt herself. Noah held her hand, which was slightly trembling, but he didn't dare to show any excited expression on his face, fearing that it might scare her. As the first sip of water entered her mouth, a torrent of memories surged into her mind. She remembered her name. She was Selena. She also recalled that she had a fiancé who had waited for her for 3 years. Noah. It felt as if two streams of memory were entangled in her mind, and gradually, the victorious memory gained the upper hand. As the tears in Noah's eyes finally fell onto Selena's hand, she heard the other person's voice, slightly choked with tears. "Eli, you finally woke up. I knew you would wake up." Elise is an orphan adopted by the Koo family, with both parents deceased and no one to rely on. The Koo family adopted her merely to gain a good reputation. So, from the moment she stepped into Koo family, Elise was always cautious. She dared not make a sound while eating, avoided unnecessary movements while walking, and even refrained from making eye contact with others in the hallway. Her heart was always trembling, and she lived in constant fear of being expelled from Koo family due to her inappropriate words or actions, until Noah returned from abroad. The first time she saw Noah, Elise's heart skipped a beat. There shouldn't be any woman in this world immune to a man as handsome and gentle as Noah. Elise thought so, but she still didn't dare to look up, nor did she dare to have any unnecessary contact with Noah. Yet Noah always came to find her. Sometimes he would struggle with domestic software, asking her to teach him how to use it step by step. Sometimes he would burn an egg and pitifully beg her to teach him how to make it golden on both sides. Sometimes he couldn't express a complete sentence in Chinese, tugging at her sleeve and asking if he could practice speaking with her more. Every time Elise teaches him, he can always learn quickly, and then he looks at Elise with starry eyes in admiration. "Eli, how are you so amazing?" Elise often feels her face flush under his gaze, and afterwards can't help but reflect. Could it be that she really is that amazing? Does someone like her really have shining points? Elise began to treat Noah like a teacher. This function isn't used like that. Cooking fish is just as simple as frying an egg. How could you not even be able to express yourself clearly? It wasn't until later that Elise realized that Noah, although he had lived abroad since childhood, had not lacked education from domestic teachers, and he had been a genius from a young age, fluent in 8 languages. As for cooking, Noah has a godlike palate. Most dishes, once he has tasted them, he can replicate the exact same flavor. But Noah hides it well. At least the clumsy and very sensitive Elise had never discovered that she might be living in a Chumen world. On the contrary, under Noah's guidance, she gradually overcame her bad habit of self-deprecation, and many times felt that she was even smarter than the genius boy others spoke of. Noah took her to see the stars, and halfway through, she realized that she had become the scenery in Noah's eyes. She asked, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Noah said, "Because I find that looking up Eli is more attractive than looking down Eli." At the age of 19, Elise and Noah officially got together. The elders of the Koo family were not satisfied with Elise. Some even whispered behind her back, saying Elise was only interested in Noah's family background, that she had deliberately played the victim to enter Koo family, just to seduce Koo family's heir. Whenever he heard these rumors, Noah would immediately step forward to clarify. He was always gentle, but when he looked at someone with a fierce expression, no one could withstand his gaze for more than 3 seconds. The rumors were easily dispelled. Even the objections from Koo father and Koo mother were suppressed by Noah. Elise was both happy and scared. Even if there were no opposing voices around, Noah was too outstanding. The number of girls surrounding him was countless, and she really couldn't be considered the best among them. Noah could always easily perceive her thoughts. So, he would write a love letter to Elise every day and ask Elise not to accept it. Originally, Elise thought this was just a little game played by Noah and him. Superficially a love letter, but there shouldn't be any words inside. But when she couldn't resist her curiosity and opened one of them, she found it was heartfelt, with every word full of emotion. So she opened the second letter, then the third. Every letter was filled with Noah's most genuine love for her. Over time, everyone at school knew that the campus heartthrob Noah was pursuing a girl, yet that girl was still reluctant to give her answer. The girls who originally wanted to approach him all backed away. Noah used his own way to tell Elise, "In the whole world, I only love Eli." Finally, at the age of 21, they held a grand engagement ceremony. Everyone in the city knew that Noah was going to marry Elise. When the dazzling diamond ring was slipped onto her ring finger, Elise almost cried out loud. For an entire year afterward, she was immersed in a beautiful love, until the graduation trip. She wanted to prove to Noah that she had truly become braver. So the destination was set at Mount Wailing. It was during that trip that Elise died from a red fruit. Noah searched for a whole year with a professional rescue team and finally unearthed Elise from the layers of decayed soil buried under the leaves. Everyone who participated in that rescue said that compared to the Elise who was dug up, Noah seemed more like a walking corpse, only showing a spark of life in his eyes when he saw his beloved. No one knows Elise when she died. Or rather, Elise didn't die. Her body showed no signs of decay, and her pale complexion even had a hint of redness. If one listened closely, it seemed as if something was still beating in her chest. But medically, it has been impossible to prove that Elise is still alive. Noah doesn't care. He carefully carried Elise's body home, treating her as if she were a normal wife. For 2 years, Noah tried countless methods. Although none succeeded, he never gave up. He believes that his Eli will return one day. Sure enough, on this day 2 years later, Elise awoke. The sweet memories from before gradually became clear with Selena's awakening. She gradually accepted that Noah called her Eli, even though deep down she still felt like Selena. As long as Noah was happy, she thought a name was just a label, perhaps because he had lost once. Noah seemed particularly anxious and could not accept the absence of his beloved within his sight. It seems that the Elise from before and the Noah now have completely reversed. So, on a sunny and clear morning, Selena leaned against Noah's embrace and said, "Noah, let's get married." Under the sunlight, Noah's eyelashes fluttered slightly. He wanted to say this the moment Elise just woke up, but he was afraid that if Elise fell asleep for too long, she might forget the feelings between them. He was afraid of scaring his Eli, but Elise actually brought it up herself. Noah nodded without any hesitation. The wedding is scheduled for the 18th of next month. Selena's recovery is going well. She will be able to be discharged in half a month. The moment she stepped out of the ward, she suddenly felt a sense of disconnection from reality. Yet her mind was flooded with unfamiliar memories that kept flashing before her. As if following a guide, she walked all the way to the top floor. There are usually 5 or 6 security guards and nurses on duty here. But strangely, there was not a single person at the entrance at this moment. So Selena easily walked in. The snow-white walls were the same as her ward, yet somewhat different, seemingly revealing pain and oppression. Pushing open the innermost door, she finally saw the person lying in the hospital bed. She was a young woman, but her complexion was simply too pale. She lay there quietly, as if she had long since lost her breath. Seeing her, for some reason, the unfamiliar memories in my mind began to surge back. Selena needed to hold onto the edge of the bed just to barely stand steady. At the moment her hand fell, her fingertips seemed to touch something soft, like the hand of a person on a sickbed. Before she could think it through, all the machines emitted a simultaneous beep 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 alarm, and even the red light at the door began to flash incessantly. Selena was terrified and hurriedly leaned against the wall to run outside. Fortunately, her movements were quick enough, and she soon left the top floor. It was only when she reached the ground floor that her heart was still pounding thump thump thump, as if it were about to leap out of her chest. Her body had only just recovered, and after being startled, combined with the sprinting, she was almost at the edge of being unable to hold on. In the second before she fainted, she saw a figure rushing towards her with all their might. When she woke up, she found herself lying in a bedroom. The familiar setting felt as if it was. In the next moment, Noah had already grasped her hand. "Eli, you finally woke up." On Noah's face, which was trying to appear calm, a line of terror finally cracked open. No one knows how chaotic and fearful his heart was when he saw Elise collapse in front of him. Everyone only knows that he foolishly waited for Elise for 3 years. But no one knows how he endured those 3 years. The countless days and nights, the rumors urging him to give up, and the eyes that could never open again had almost become his nightmare every night. He was always afraid that he wouldn't be able to sleep, because if this continued, sooner or later his body would also be unable to hold on. But he was also afraid of falling asleep, because as soon as he falls asleep, the Elise in his dreams will forever leave him, running into the arms of another strange man. He is extremely scared and heartbroken, but he can do nothing, only guarding by Elise's bedside day after day, hoping that his Eli can return to him. Perhaps heaven took pity on him, and Elise woke up again. He is very clear that his slowness is still the same as before, but there seems to be something subtly different. But he doesn't care at all. He just wants his Eli to wake up. But clearly it was already the agreed discharge time. Eli still hadn't shown up, and he began to panic, rushing into the hospital to check. Just a second before entering the hospital, he saw Elise slowly collapsing. He almost thought history was about to repeat itself. Fortunately this time, Eli did not keep him waiting long. Even so, he could no longer suppress the fear inside, tightly holding Elise in his arms. "Eli, don't leave me. Never leave me again." Selena's heart felt like it was missing a piece. An endless pain surged in through that gap. She gently wiped away Noah's tears. "I won't leave you. After all the effort it took for me to see you again, how could I bear to leave?" Christian was searching for a ring in the lake when he received a call from his assistant. The engagement ring that he had thrown away in front of Selena and Sue's grandma. After consulting with the most renowned internal and external medicine doctors both domestically and internationally, there was still no one who could explain Selena's current condition. No breathing, no brain activity, only a faint rise and fall of the chest. Some even believe that such a situation should be deemed as death. But Christian doesn't believe it. Selena was clearly lying there perfectly fine. She just hadn't opened her eyes. She was still very much alive. Without a diagnosis of the cause, there are rarely any targeted treatments available. At this time, a doctor suggested that perhaps treatment could be conducted using methods for a vegetative state. Although a patient in a vegetative state cannot respond externally, they can actually receive information that is conveyed to them. So perhaps frequently mentioning past events in front of the patient might awaken a glimmer of hope. When it comes to the past, it is best to have some objects to assist. Christian quickly returned to Sue's home. He remembered that Selena had once drawn many pictures for him, and he wanted to move the paintings to the ward. Perhaps if Selena saw them, she would be willing to wake up. But when he stood in the empty room, he realized that everything related to Selena had already disappeared. Clothes, jewelry, photographs, including those paintings. The servant beside him timidly explained. "It was Miss Lynn." "Oh no. It was Carolina who instructed us to pack up all of Miss Wren's things and send them to the airport. She also said that this time Miss Wren wouldn't be coming back after going abroad. So everything must be packed up. Not a single item can be left behind." Christian suddenly remembered the day he was preparing to send Selena off to another country. He seemed to hear Selena once say to someone on the other end of the phone, "I don't want it anymore." At that time, he had asked her about it. Selena just calmly shook her head. A few old clothes. Christian was suddenly overwhelmed by a bad premonition and hurriedly sent someone to the airport. The result he received, however, was that Selena had taken the initiative to ask the airport staff to throw away all her luggage, including those paintings. The airport staff also said that since several days have passed, those things should have already been sent to the landfill for incineration. Christian was almost going crazy. For the first time, he deeply felt Selena's resolve. Tears flowed through his fingers, and he suddenly remembered that there was originally an engagement ring on his ring finger. That engagement ring was chosen by him and Selena together. He still remembers the smile in Selena's eyes when she put the engagement ring on him, a smile that couldn't be hidden. So, all that Selena left for him was that engagement ring. He returned to the original hospital and came to the window beneath it. The vast surface of the lake was floating with a few fallen leaves, and occasionally small stones from the shore would roll down, quickly disappearing from sight. Christian spent money to hire a professional salvage team to search the bottom of the lake for the ring, but such a needle-in-a-haystack endeavor was destined to yield no results. So he found someone to completely drain the lake. The bottom of the lake was covered with 3 to 4 meters of silt. Even draining the water was just a drop in the bucket when it came to salvaging a ring. Sue's father and Sue's mother also came in person, but they are here to dissuade Christian. Sue's father looked at the son, who he once took pride in, with a gaze that constantly revealed disappointment. For a woman, you disregard the company and your future. I think you have gone mad. Sue's mother also reproached him unhappily. You keep a person who is neither alive nor dead in the hospital, and I won't say anything about that. But now, for the sake of retrieving a ring, you are making such a fuss. You are the only heir of the Sue family, and you need to act with discretion. If you continue like this, how will people outside view us? Christian looked up, but his eyes lacked the brilliance of the past. In the past, he cared too much about others' opinions, which is why he heartlessly left Selena all alone in a place like Mount Wailing. Because his parents didn't like Selena very much, he tried every means to change Selena into someone his parents would like, thus pushing Selena further away. But the one who truly loves Selena is him, and the one who is going to marry Selena is also him. Why should he care about the opinions of his parents and outsiders? So, for the first time, he firmly rejected Sue's mother's request. I want Selena. I want her to wake up. If she is destined not to wake up, then I will go die with her. For an entire week, Christian followed the salvage team, inch by inch, sifting through the mud, searching bit by bit. The mud was sometimes littered with all sorts of small stones and glass shards. Christian had no experience in salvage. He could only rely on brute force to search, often cutting his gloves, and deeper wounds would sink into his flesh, merging with the mud to form dark blood. But the physical pain is far less unbearable than the despair in the heart. In the end, he was almost searching purely by instinct, until he received this call from his assistant. Rushing to the hospital, Christian's clothes were still stained with mud, his handsome face marked by exhaustion, as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. Has Selena woken up? The director, who had been waiting nearby, quickly responded. Half an hour ago. The instruments in Miss Wren's ward emitted an abnormal alarm, almost detecting brief brain waves and a heartbeat, but it has since returned to calm. We have been closely monitoring, but we have not reached a definite conclusion yet. But overall, being able to measure brain waves and heartbeats is definitely a good thing. Not knowing how to describe his feelings at this moment, Christian walked to the bedside and gently took Selena's hand. That pale face remained calm and undisturbed. What do you plan to do now? Christian asked. A doctor walked in holding a tablet. The director took the tablet and opened a video to play in front of Christian. The most important thing now is to understand why Miss Wren's body is experiencing abnormal fluctuations. So we searched through videos from the time before the incident and found a particularly notable person. Christian took the tablet, and in the image, a slender woman walked into the intensive care unit. At first, all the instruments were functioning normally, until that woman's hand accidentally brushed against Selena. In less than a second, all the instruments began to sound wildly. Every corner of the intensive care unit is filled with surveillance, so the woman's appearance can be clearly captured. It was a face Christian had never seen before, but for some reason, He felt an inexplicable familiarity with it. Who is this woman? At this moment, the assistant had already received the investigation results and handed a news cover to Christian currently. On the 18th of this month, the heir of the Koo family wants to hold a wedding with his fiancée, and this fiancée is the woman who appeared in the video. Christian looked at the news, and suddenly a difficult-to-describe feeling arose in his heart. The Koo family holds a status in the city that is almost on par with the Soo family. So Christian also knows the heir, Noah, having had brief conversations at several parties. However, 3 years ago, this heir inexplicably faded from the public eye. Now, suddenly, news has emerged that he is to marry his fiancée. Has the identity of this woman been checked? The assistant nodded. Her name is Elise. She is an orphan adopted by the Koo family, and she got engaged to Noah 3 years ago. But later, she went missing during an expedition at Mount Wailing. It is said that Noah searched for her for a whole year before finally finding her at Mount Wailing. When she was found, Elise's bodily functions had almost dropped to zero, and many doctors had declared her dead. But strangely, just half a month ago, she suddenly woke up. As the assistant was speaking, he noticed that Christian's expression was becoming increasingly grim, to the point where he could barely stand without leaning against the wall. Mr. Koo! The assistant wanted to step forward to help, but was blocked by Christian's outstretched hand. His voice was weak, yet carried an uncontrollable madness. Are you saying that Elise also went to Mount Wailing and came out a vegetable? The assistant was about to nod but was surprised to find that this Elise's experience was remarkably similar to Selena's, as if it were a copy. Before he could gather his thoughts, he heard Christian's irrefutable command. I want to see her. There are less than 10 days left until the wedding. Noah has to manage the company's business while also preparing for the wedding, and he is almost too busy to stand still. Yet he still manages to set aside half of his time each day to be with Selena. Selena knows that Noah was terrified by the last time she suddenly fainted. He wished he could have Selena by his side every moment, in a place where he could see and touch her. Yet he feared that doing so would restrict Selena's freedom. If it were in the past, he wouldn't have such thoughts at all. But he has waited for 3 years. In these 3 years, he has tasted hope and despair, and has almost been tortured to the point of losing the ability to love normally. But he dares not reveal anything. He fears that if he shows too much, it will provoke his lover's aversion. After all, everyone hopes to present their best side in front of the person they love the most. Selena feels very distressed, yet she doesn't know what to do to comfort her lover. While preparing wedding souvenirs, she suddenly came across the love letters that Noah had sent her in the past, a total of 132. Many of the corners of the love letters have already turned yellow and curled up, because in the past she would always go through them. The affection of the lover is undoubtedly revealed in the lines. Selena believes she doesn't have Noah's writing skills, able to spread love across every page, but she can paint. Thinking of this, Selena felt a sudden clarity. She found the easel that had been gathering dust at home, and like muscle memory, she splashed colors onto the canvas. Every detail in the painting corresponds to the words in the love letters, ultimately constructing a version of Noah in her mind. Strangely, when she was painting, another man's face would occasionally float into her mind. It was as if she had once patiently and carefully painted another person like this. However, she didn't think much about it and focused intently on completing the painting. When Noah returned home, he saw Selena standing in front of the easel, painting. Eli. Selena turned her head and looked back at Noah. I don't know how to express my love for you, and I don't know what I can do to make you stop worrying about me. But I can paint, so I want to replicate the way you loved me back then. From today on, I will draw a picture for you every day. The content of the picture will correspond to the love letters you write to me. Noah, I am not as good at loving as you are, nor am I as good at expressing it. But what I want to tell you is that I really love you and will never leave you, because I came back for you. Noah felt as if something had gently bumped against his heart. He thought he had it all under control, but it turned out that all this time, she knew about his anxiety, fear, and confusion. Noah couldn't help but step forward and embrace Selena. Once upon a time, Elise loved to paint, but she never painted him. He once asked her, and Elise always lowered her head and said she was too afraid to paint because she feared her work wouldn't be good enough. But many times, Noah had seen in Elise's studio, on some quiet deep nights, that her drawing paper was filled with him. Yet the next early morning, she would destroy all those paintings. He saw Elise destroying those paintings, her eyes filled with anxiety and reluctance. At that moment, he understood. Because Elise was still afraid of losing, the trauma of her childhood made her subconsciously feel that nothing would ever truly belong to her. So even when loved, she remained constantly on guard. That's why Noah came up with the idea of writing her a love letter. If a lover is always worried about losing, then the best way is to repeatedly tell her that she will never lose. If once is not enough, say it twice. If twice is not enough, say it 10 times. If 10 times is not enough, say it 100 times. Is there really a shortcut to loving someone? The more than 100 love letters finally opened Elise's heart completely, and they successfully got engaged. About to step into the hall of marriage, Noah once thought he had truly succeeded. He had successfully opened his lover's heart with his love, and they would never be apart again. But reality struck him hard. Only after realizing that death could completely take his lover away did he feel that even if Elise ultimately woke up, he would no longer have a sense of security. The anxiety of gain and loss nearly drowned him. However, today, Elise actively picked up a brush and painted him. It was as if the wish from 3 years ago had truly come true at this moment. His Eli finally possessed the ability to love. Noah finally held her tightly, pressing a kiss on her forehead. Eli, thank you for telling me that you came back for me. Selena would sit in the studio every day, and when she got tired of painting, she would look out at the scenery. There would often be servants calling her, either to try on wedding dresses, to confirm the style of the wedding venue, or to finalize the guest list. Her entire day was always busy and bustling. Every evening was the time she looked forward to the most, because Noah would come back. Since they had their last heart-to-heart, Noah had visibly become much happier, often pulling out all sorts of small gifts from his pockets like magic. I was so bored during the meeting today that I secretly folded a rose to give to you. Passing by the mall window, I saw this necklace at first glance, and I thought you would definitely like it. This is the first ray of sunlight I saw this morning. I thought it was beautiful, so I took a picture to share with you. Every time, Selena can't help but smile. So, when the servant knocked on the door today, her first reaction was that Noah had come home early from work. She excitedly opened the studio door, only to find a person she did not recognize standing outside. Who are you? Although Christian was also meeting Elise for the first time, he instinctively felt displeased by her unfamiliarity. It seemed that Elise should not have shown such a surprised expression, but he showed nothing on his face, only smiling as he replied, I am Christian. Selena furrowed her brow, looking at the somewhat weathered man in front of her, and asked, May I ask what you need from me? Christian paid no attention to Selena's wariness, stepping into the studio as he walked and replied, Mr. Koo entrusted the music for the wedding venue to my company, and I specifically came to ask for the bride's opinion. In fact, Christian didn't completely lie. Noah did indeed entrust the music for the wedding venue to a media company under the Sue family. But that media company is just a subsidiary. No matter how big the business, it would be impossible for the Koo family heir to negotiate this deal. Although displeased with Christian's uninvited behavior, after hearing the reason, Elise didn't say much more. I hope the music at the venue can be a bit more relaxed and fun. To be honest, I don't really understand this. Maybe you can talk to Noah about it. Noah. Hearing such an intimate term come from the other person's mouth, the displeasure in Christian's heart became increasingly apparent, almost to the point of being uncontrollable, and he could only hurriedly turn his head to avoid letting the other party notice. As he turned his head, he happened to see the painting on the easel. Every brushstroke, composition, and color combination was familiar to Christian, because Selena used to paint like this. Ironically, the painting depicted a man. Christian almost instinctively thought of himself as portrayed by Selena. Did you paint all of these? Selena nodded, but felt increasingly that Christian's tone was off. Christian couldn't help but move closer to the painting, surprised to find a circle in the lower left corner. He remembered that Selena would do the same, drawing a circle in the lower left corner of every painting. He had also curiously asked before. Selena said. Because I am Selena. That circle represents the complete moon. I don't like to write my name under my paintings, so that circle is my exclusive signature. Christian felt as if his breath had stopped. He pointed to the circular pattern in the lower left corner of the painting, struggling hard to keep his voice from sounding rude. What is that? Selena glanced at the pattern and replied calmly. Oh, that's my personal signature. What did you say? Selena was surprised by Christian's outburst, yet she still patiently answered. My name is Elise, and that circle represents the full moon. I don't like to write my name under my paintings, so that circle is my exclusive signature. It was almost an identical response. Christian suddenly felt that the person in front of him was his Selena, but such a thought was truly too crazy. He couldn't be sure until he saw the paint smudge on Selena's left index finger. You paint with your left hand? This time, Christian could no longer suppress the tremor in his voice. Selena instinctively took a step back, her thumb tightly gripping the side of her middle finger's pad. That was an unconscious action she often made when she was nervous or scared. Christian, of course, noticed it too. From the moment he saw that circle, his gaze was irresistibly drawn to the woman in front of him, unable to control his close attention to her every move. Such small gestures are exactly like Selena from before. His voice almost turned into a roar. Tell me, do you also draw with your left hand? Selena was taken aback. She no longer dared to respond, instinctively retreating to the door, ready to run out for help. But her movements were still a beat too slow. Just as her hand touched the doorknob, she was tightly embraced from behind by Christian. Selena, is that you? You are my Selena, right? Your soul has left your body and entered someone else's, hasn't it? In the moment he embraced her, Christian was even more certain of his thoughts. An identical scent. This woman possesses a scent that is exactly like Selena's. How could such a coincidence exist in this world? How could two different people resemble each other so closely? Selena was completely terrified, struggling desperately and repeatedly calling out Noah's name. Noah. Help. Noah. Where are you? Her movements were too frantic and helpless. In her excitement, she accidentally bumped her forehead against the door frame, quickly leaving a large, bright red bruise on her fair skin. Christian saw it and, with a pained heart, covered her wound. Selena, what's wrong? Seizing the opportunity, Selena bit down hard on Christian's hand, bitten with such force. The skin quickly oozed blood, and Christian, in pain, released his grip. Selena quickly regripped the doorknob and rushed out of the studio at the fastest speed, accidentally crashing into a warm embrace. Eli, what's wrong? Noah immediately hugged Selena comfortingly. Eli, don't be afraid. Tell me, what happened? At this moment, Christian also walked out of the studio. He tucked his bitten hand into his pocket. It had already healed, calm and composed. He even greeted Noah friendly. Ku Zong, long time no see. When she met Christian's meaningful gaze, what Selena wanted to say suddenly stopped. But after calming down, she still chose to tell the truth to Noah. But before she could speak, Christian spoke first. Mr. Ku and Mr. Su are about to collaborate soon. I specifically came today to discuss the details of the contract with Mr. Ku. I'm really sorry for taking up Mr. Ku's break time. This time, Selena completely shut her mouth. The Su family and Ku family are the two most powerful families in the city. Once they collaborate, the benefits will surely be extremely considerable. If she tells Noah about what just happened in the studio, not only will the collaboration fall through, but the two families might also become completely hostile. She didn't want Noah to be caught in such a dilemma. Noah politely nodded to Christian but still held Selena's hand tightly. Eli, what exactly happened? Can you tell me? Christian slowly began to speak. A caterpillar just fell from the sycamore tree outside the window, landing right at Miss Yuan's feet, which scared her so much that she rushed out of the studio. Selena nodded. From Noah's understanding expression, Christian knew that this time he guessed right again. In the past, Selena was also afraid of caterpillars. As he left with Noah, Christian intentionally passed by Selena and softly said a few words. Selena, don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. The date of the wedding has arrived as promised. Selena was a bit flustered, yet somewhat delighted. His friends told him this is called pre-wedding syndrome. Many brides experience this, so there's no need to panic. According to wedding customs, the groom and bride cannot see each other the day before the wedding, so Noah can only contact her through phone calls and messages. Eli, don't be afraid. We will see each other soon. Actually, I'm nervous too, but just thinking that after today, you will become my legal wife makes the wait feel sweet. Selena wore a long, trailing wedding dress, adding a wedding ring to the painting of Noah, and then instructed the wedding designer to quickly hang this final painting at the wedding venue. A total of 26 pieces. Although it still falls far short of the number of love letters, it is enough to fill the background of the hall. She named today's painting Beginning. From today on, the subject of her paintings would no longer be her fiancé, but her true husband. Thinking of this, Selena couldn't help but laugh out loud. The servant outside told her that the wedding procession was already on the way and would likely arrive in about 5 minutes. Selena replied with a okay, adjusted her dress in front of the mirror once more, and was about to step out of the room. Suddenly, she seemed to see a dark shadow in the mirror. Before she could take a closer look, a cloth soaked in medicine was pressed over her mouth and nose. She didn't even have time to struggle before she completely fell into a coma, not knowing how much time had passed. When she woke up again, she found herself in a car. Perhaps it was the haste of being taken away. The wedding dress, which had been tried on repeatedly, was not changed in time, but simply and brutally had its train cut off and the crinoline removed. As she looked up, she collided with Christian's gaze, which was gentle yet tinged with a hint of obsession. At that moment, she finally realized that she had been lying in Christian's arms all along. She struggled to get up, but was forcibly held down. Selena, weren't you the one who loved me holding you the most? Why are you running away? Fragments of images flashed through Selena's mind. What do you really want to do? I tell you, no matter where you want to take me, Noah will find me. There was an obvious irritation in Christian's eyes. Noah, why do you always have to call his name? He is not your lover. I am. No. The only one I love is Noah. Christian took a deep breath, barely managing to suppress his anger. He put on a gentle mask again, carefully stroking Selena's hair. What was clearly a loving gesture made Selena feel a tingling sensation on her scalp. It's okay. You just lost your memories from before. Soon you will know who your true lover is. Soon. The car came to a stop. It wasn't until her feet touched the ground that Selena finally realized Christian had actually brought her to Mount Wailing. When she got out of the car, Selena lost her balance and fell to the ground. Christian quickly held her in his arms, continuously asking her if she was hurt anywhere. At that moment, a man dressed in a black robe, his entire face shrouded in shadow, spoke up to remind her, "Mr. Sue, don't delay the time." She was carried into Mount Wailing by Christian. This stretch of road felt unusually familiar, as if she had walked it 3 years ago. No, or perhaps it was 3 months ago. The memories in her mind were in a chaotic state, and she couldn't distinguish which parts were real and which were false. The man in the black robe stared at her, a chilling smile creeping across his face. "Miss Wren, your memory is about to return." Not knowing how long he had walked, until Mount Wailing deep in the forest, Christian finally stopped. And Selena was also surprised to find that there was actually a person lying under the tree. Perhaps it is not accurate to say so, because the woman was not breathing, and there was no visible rise and fall of her chest. She seemed to have already died. She recognized her. The woman was the one she had seen in the intensive care unit on the top floor of the hospital. Memories surged in her mind, and for a moment, the pain was so intense that she couldn't stand up. Christian wanted to reach out to her, but was stopped by the man in the black robe. Those memories must be found by her own. Only when she remembers can I restore their souls back. Don't you want to see your lover come back to life? Christian finally withdrew his hand, looking at Selena with a worried expression. At this moment, Selena could hear nothing. The fragmented scenes from the past finally pieced together into a complete segment, seemingly ready to shatter and reorganize her memories. It seemed she finally remembered. She made a deal with the dead here. The dead saved her with their last strength, giving her all their memories. with the only condition being that she must marry Noah. So now, she is both Selena and Elise. The man in the black robe seemed to see through her thoughts. His cold voice echoed again. It seems Miss Rin has remembered everything. Then it's just right. The ceremony can begin. The man in the black robe seemed to draw some symbols in the air. And for a moment, a gust of wind swept through the already eerie forest. It was as if there was some unfamiliar guidance. Selena walked step by step to the side of that sleeping body. Now she has completely remembered the time spent with Christian. There were sweet moments and there was happiness. But in the end, they reached their conclusion. Selena does not regret having such a memory. But she absolutely does not want to return to Christian's side. She struggled to look at Christian. Even if you forcibly put my soul back into this body, I can never love you again. The person I love is only Noah. No, that won't happen. Christian looked at her with some agitation. The master said that as long as you return to your original body, Elise's memories will cease to exist. You say you love Noah, but it's just the influence of that memory. Once that memory is gone, Noah will just be a stranger to you. Selena, I know I made many mistakes in the past, but I swear I will change. Please give me another chance, okay? The wind in the forest grew stronger, and Selena felt as if her soul was being torn apart, unable to suppress a painful wail. No, I don't want to. I only want to be with Noah. I promised him. I came here only for him, and I will never leave him. Hearing his lover constantly thinking about another man, Christian felt a heart-wrenching pain. Why? Why won't Selena give him another chance? Does Selena really hate him that much? At this moment, the wind in the forest seemed to be stopped by some force, and the man in the black robe furrowed his brow, murmuring, "It's actually a soul in two bodies." Christian was astonished. What does that mean? The man in the black robe explains. What it means is that Selena and Elise share one soul in two bodies. In simple terms, Selena and Elise are the same person, so they will have the same habits, the same personality, and even similar experiences. Because they are the same person, it's just that their soul has been split in two, residing in two different bodies. So what do we do now? Originally, it was easy to extract the residing soul from the body, but now the situation is different. If Miss Rin is unwilling, I can only forcibly separate her soul, but in that case, the soul might be torn apart. In that case, Miss Rin and Miss Yuan might not survive either. Christian was completely stunned. He didn't want Selena to fall in love with another man, and she couldn't bear to watch Selena possibly die. Just then, a strange noise suddenly came from the woods. Noah had arrived. Noah. Upon seeing Noah, Selena let out a scream. However, before Noah could get close, she was held at knife point by the man in the black robe. No, don't hurt Eli. The man in the black robe completely ignored him and just looked at Christian. Sue, make a decision quickly. Once time passes, even if you want to change, you won't be able to go back. Christian was momentarily silent, but it was Noah who spoke first. Eli, I don't want you to die. Even if you no longer remember me or love me in the future, I still hope you can live happily. I really can't bear the pain of losing you again. After he finished speaking, he was already in tears. Selena shook her head in pain. But if I forget you, I won't be happy. If that's how I have to live, I'd rather die. As she spoke, Selena drew a glass shard from her waist. That was what she picked up after pretending to fall when she got off the car. The shard had an exceptionally sharp edge, capable of easily cutting her throat. At that moment, Christian was in so much pain that he couldn't breathe. He had never thought that he knew Selena hated him, but he had never imagined that Selena could love Noah so deeply, even willing to die to preserve that memory. He couldn't describe the feelings in his heart. Perhaps it was pain, perhaps helplessness, but the only thing he knew was that he didn't want Selena to die. Almost immediately, he shouted to Selena, "No, Selena, don't do this. I'm willing to let you go." Selena stunned for a moment. In that brief instant, less than a second, the glass shard in her hand was forcefully knocked away by the man in the black robe. Only the cold voice of the man in the black robe echoed again. "Mr. Sue, it's too late for you to regret now. Do you think I'm really after your money? A soul split in two like this is a once-in-a-century occurrence. If I can refine it, my power will completely break through. The wind in the forest grew stronger, and the man in the black robe grasped Selena's neck, preparing to bite down hard. A gunshot rang out in the woods. In the next moment, blood began to flow from the man's forehead, and he collapsed to the ground, limp. Noah ran over, tightly embracing Selena. At that moment, the sniper who had been hiding in the forest finally revealed himself. In fact, Noah had been suspicious ever since Christian first appeared at the Koo family. It was just that Selena didn't mention it, and he didn't actively ask about the others' concerns. Secretly, he arranged for more than a dozen bodyguards and snipers around Selena, and he had installed a miniature locator in the necklace he gave to Selena. So Selena immediately knew something was wrong. She had appeared alone just now to avoid raising Christian's and the man in the black robe suspicions. Selena lay in Christian's arms, finally fainting from exhaustion. When she woke up, she was already back home, and Noah was watching over her. She couldn't help but tightly embrace the man in front of her, fearing that she was just dreaming. Noah smiled as he held her, his eyes filled with endless tenderness. "Eli, it's okay. I'm here. You don't have to be afraid of anything." 3 days later, Elise and Noah held their wedding again, in front of their family and friends. They exchanged wedding rings for each other. Amidst the cheers of the crowd, she and Noah shared a long and sweet kiss. In the intensive care unit, Christian lay beside Selena's body. After coming out of Mount Wailing, Selena's body gradually began to decay severely. That was a symbol of complete death. Yet Christian still chose not to bury her. Instead, he wiped her body every day, trying to make Selena look clean and beautiful. On this day, he specially prepared a wedding dress for Selena and also got himself a new groom's outfit. In fact, this was something he had prepared a long time ago. He lay quietly beside Selena, slowly injecting the drug from the syringe into his vein. "Selena, I'm here to accompany you.